There's certain phrases I don't use much. I don't say you do you. I don't really use game changer. And I'm not prone to dropping topsy-turvy in a conversation. But to be fair, last year the NFC East was, in fact, topsy-turvy. The favorites, Dallas and Philly, they flopped while the Giants and Washington battled into last week. And in Dallas, the quarterback got hurt. In Philly, the quarterback got benched. And in Washington, the quarterback got released. See? Topsy-turvy. All right, for more on this division, let's bring in CBS Sports senior NFL insider Jonathan Jones. All right, Jonathan, what's the latest on Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts and what's going on with the quarterback situation in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I fully anticipate Carson Wentz will ultimately get traded. That is his wish. And the Philadelphia Eagles and GM Howie Roseman are working very hard at granting him his wish. However, got to have a taker. And right now it has been narrowed down to the Indianapolis Colts and Chicago Bears. In fact, it's been narrowed down to them for more than a week. And what we saw around Super Bowl week was an effort by Howie Roseman and those within the front office of the Philadelphia Eagles to create a sense of urgency. It was, hey, you know, there's somebody else coming to look at this house here pretty soon, so maybe you want to put an offer in it right now. Maybe you want to go ahead and buy right now. That's what was going on. And the Colts and the Bears, and really the collective NFL said, all right, we'll see. And, well, they found out that Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles were bluffing. He was holding a 2 and a 7. So, listen, they have Wentz, and they don't have to, if the Bears or Colts want him, maybe it will wind up being a first-round pick, but it wasn't going to be exactly what the Eagles wanted everyone to believe 7 to 10 days ago. So, yeah, he's going to get dealt, and he has to get dealt by the third day of the new league year. So we're talking about March 19th or 20th. Because that's when the $10 million bonus kicks in. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the Eagles from a cap perspective to be dealing him at that moment. Of course, you would rather deal him than keep him, especially since he doesn't want to be there. But they would be able to save about $900,000 in cap savings if they can deal him before that day, the third day of the new league year. And listen, they're going to have to figure out from there their wide receiver position. They're also going to have to cut likely Alshon Jeffrey, probably cut Deshaun Jackson. They're going to have to get Zach Ertz off the books, whether that's a trade or a straight-up cut. And then the team will finally be, I don't want to say handed to Jalen Hurts, because I do believe that there needs to be some competition with the young fella there in Philly. So it's going to be a matter of what veteran do you bring into Philadelphia. I believe Jalen Hurts, if the job is given to him or earned by him, that he will be the week 1 starter with the Eagles. But do you look for a Ryan Fitzpatrick, depending on what happens there with him in the waning years of his career? Do you look at a Tyrod Taylor? Cam Newton? Perhaps, because there isn't going to be a starting position for Cam once the musical chairs, or once the music stops on those musical chairs for the 32 teams. So will he be okay being a backup playing at a very low salary? Really, that's going to be the question for any number of potential veteran backup quarterbacks. The Philadelphia Eagles do not have any money to spend this free agency. They need to shed salaries. That's what they're going to do. And Jalen Hurts will be playing and will be quarterbacking a team in week 1 that looks a whole lot different than it does right now.
Dallas should look a whole lot different next year just because the guy behind center is not going to be Andy Dalton. We don't think. Dak Prescott looks like he'll be healthy. We think he's going to be back in Dallas, maybe a long-term deal, maybe franchise, but they are the prohibitive favorites to win the division on the William Hill board. But does that mean they're assuming what everybody's assuming? And do you make that assumption that Dak Prescott is going to be in Dallas? What's the latest there?
Yeah, I am assuming that he will be in Dallas. They would be fools, absolute fools. We're talking about Houston Texans level ignorant to let him go into free agency. So I am not confident that they're going to work out a long-term deal. In fact, I'm far from confident that they're going to do that anytime soon. I do anticipate that they will exercise the franchise tag on him for a second straight year, and that'll be around $38 million. Now, the Cowboys continue to kick themselves from the mistakes they've made over previous years, not locking him up to a long-term deal, a deal that they could restructure, a deal that would lower his cap hit. There's no relief from the franchise tag. It is what it is. And so the only way that the Cowboys are going to be able to get under the salary cap number that they're going to need to be at the beginning of the league year, and really to make any sort of moves in free agency, they're going to have to restructure a lot of guys. And I don't know if that's going to be Amari Cooper, that's going to be Zach Martin, DeMarcus Lawrence. Is Tyron Smith going to retire? Do you want to restructure him? Can you with Ezekiel Elliott? There's really no fat to trim. There's no real obvious, oh, you're going to cut that guy and this guy. Now you're under the cap. Now you have money to spend on Dak Prescott. They're going to have to get a little fancy with the cap. A number of teams are, so they're not going to be working really any sort of magic that none of us can possibly understand. But that's going to be the deal for the Dallas Cowboys, a deal that, again, they should be kicking themselves not going to Dak Prescott very shortly after Jared Goff a couple years ago signed his 4-year extension worth $130-something million and say, hey, Dak, we'll give you that deal. We'll throw a couple more million on top of it. Be our quarterback. No, they didn't like that he wanted a shorter-term deal, and they wanted a 6- or 7-year deal. And, you know, it pays more to have that star on your helmet and be the franchise quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. They kept believing in all of that sort of old line of thinking, and this is where it's gotten them in a position where they get no cap relief from having Dak Prescott on the roster because they made those mistakes year after year for at least the last 2 years. So he's going to stay in Dallas because, again, they would be very, very stupid to let him walk.
All right, Giants drafted Daniel Jones. He's in the middle of his rookie deal. They may be looking elsewhere. What do the Giants feel that their most pressing needs are as they get ready for the draft and free agency?
Yeah, Dave Gettleman, the general manager, very much believes in Daniel Jones. But it's not just his show, of course. John Mara, the co-owner of the New York Giants, very much believes in Daniel Jones. And Joe Judge believes in him as well. Now, what I would love to see from the New York Giants as it pertains to Daniel Jones, number one, Jason Garrett, the offensive coordinator, needs to bring this offense into the 2020s. And by that I mean we need to have some more motion. And when you look at this Giants team, this is a team where Daniel Jones had a sack rate of 10.6% when there was no motion before the snap. That sack rate went down to 4.3% with motion. Defenses didn't know what was happening. He was able to identify defensive coverages a lot better. This was a bottom 3 team in the NFL last season in motion. So I want to see this offense get far more creative moving forward. And then the other thing, of course, they're going to have to add some playmaking wide receivers out there. Yeah, they have Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, but they're probably going to cut Golden Tate. They'd save about $8.5 million there in cap space, along with the fact that how it ended in New York with him not getting the ball as much as he wanted probably left a pretty bad taste in everyone's mouth. But they also have some other pressing issues as well. They have to figure out the other corner position opposite James Bradbury. That's a position that's really been a thorn in the side of the Giants the last couple of years. They've tried a lot of swings, a lot of misses there at that other corner position. And then they need a blue chip pass rusher. And Lorenzo Carter should be coming back, but you need to get somebody that can really go after the passer. Dave Gettleman has called it a blue goose pass rusher in years past. So those are the places that I see the Giants needing to add. However, I will say I really did like what I saw as they progressed throughout the season. I thought that they got better if you split the season into thirds, and each of those thirds. And so they need to build off of that momentum going into 2021.
All right, then you have the division champs, Washington. Dwayne Haskins was their first-round pick a few years back, same draft as Daniel Jones. He's cut. He's in Pittsburgh. Alex Smith may not be back. They did sign Tyler Heineke, who looked good in the playoffs, but I don't anticipate he's going to be their starting quarterback. What's their plan?
Yeah, Taylor Heineke got that 2-year, almost $5 million deal. It was a little inflated when it first came out. A lot of incentives in there. But, you know, Heineke got that deal, and there's Kyle Allen, who's an exclusive rights free agent, still there as well. They have the backup quarterback position figured out in Washington. They're fine there. Taylor Heineke played well enough down the stretch. What you want to figure out, of course, is the Alex Smith deal, and what are you going to do with him? Listen, an incredible story. We all know it and understand it and appreciate it, but he's set to count $24 million against the cap. And you could cut him and save about $14 million. You're not going to find a trade partner at his number, so whatever you do, you need to handle it delicately if you're the Washington football team. You need to use all your powers and all your skills to make sure he's sent off the right way if you do send him off, if you decide that you can be better at the quarterback position. And Washington, of course, was in a Matt Stafford sweepstakes. They couldn't really offer what the Rams could offer. In fact, no one could offer what the Rams could offer, including the Carolina Panthers, who were also in there. So it's very clear that Washington is looking for life after Alex Smith, but because of what he has given to the organization, because of how he has handled everything with the utmost class and dignity and grace, you have to be able, if you're Washington, especially if you trade him, find a suitable trade partner. Again, probably not going to happen at that number and his injury history, and so the likely event is that you cut him, and so you have to do it, again, extremely delicately. Now, where else can Washington look? I think that there are about half the teams in the NFL who would be in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. Don't know if Washington would have enough in order to give up to get him. But you look around, the Raiders, their two quarterbacks, Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota. I would anticipate Mariota would be more available than Carr. You look at the 49ers, if they make a move for Deshaun Watson, that frees up Jimmy Garoppolo at a very affordable $25 million this year, about the same next year, but no real guarantees, so you could wiggle out of that. You also have Marty Hurney, the former Panthers general manager, now in the front office with Washington, and he signed Teddy Bridgewater to that 3-year deal in Carolina. We know that Carolina is looking to upgrade their quarterback position, so he could become available. It's going to be very interesting to see. Again, I don't see a Deshaun Watson in Washington necessarily, and yes, they struck out on Matt Stafford, but if they are serious about upgrading that quarterback position, they're going to have to wait for the Deshaun Watson dominoes to fall, I believe, and once those start happening, we're going to see a trickle-down effect around the NFL at the quarterback position. That's where Washington can strike. That's where they will likely be able to cut Alex Smith, and again, they have to do it delicately.
Amazing. Washington won the division last year. They have the longest odds to win the division coming into this year. Nice work, JJ. Appreciate the time, bub. So let's take a look at those odds. I mentioned Washington, they won, but they have the longest odds tied with the Giants. So the two teams with the best record, Giants 6-10, as was Dallas, but remember, Giants would have gone to the playoffs had Philly shown up against Washington. We don't need to rehash it. Here's the bottom line. Right now, Dallas is even money, 50% to win the division. Eagles, 23%. Giants and Washington, 19%, which basically means, do you want Dallas or do you want the other three teams?
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.